There is a wonderful city on earth, and in it live only wells. They're alive. They are different, each well is different from each other. One well is golden, one is made of stone, the next well is made of wood, and some wells are made of twigs. They are all different, some are richer, some are poorer. There were also poor wells made of the simplest and cheapest materials. They were very fond of talking to each other. And it happened from well to well, as it happens among people, by word of mouth. Any news spread quickly in this town. And one day, one very interesting idea flew around the town of wells. This idea was heard by the outermost well, when people from the neighboring village passed by the wells. Recently, it has become fashionable to be filled with something, not to be empty. It will give solidity and importance to each well. Then the wells began to fill themselves gradually. Some decided to fill themselves with gold, diamonds, various precious stones. Others decided to fill themselves with furniture and interior items. Lovers of beautiful things began to fill themselves with paintings and art objects. Intelligent wells, books, dictionaries, and all sorts of information. They liked this activity very much. There appeared meaning in life and fullness. But you see, it couldn't go on like this for long. Every well has an edge and a bottom. In time, all the wells in the city were filled up and they had nowhere to put the things that were dear to them. Then one of the wells had an ingenious idea. In order to accommodate his favorite objects, he had to expand. And it expanded, thereby gaining the ability to fill up more and more. The other wells saw this and decided to take advantage of the idea. Work began and all the wells began to expand. A small well on the outskirts of the town watched all this. He could clearly see how the wells were expanding, how the space between them was getting smaller and smaller. He was afraid that if this continued, there would come a point when there would be nowhere for them to expand and they might merge into one huge well or several huge wells. Thus they would lose their individuality. And the little well thought that we should not dig wide, but deep. But how can you dig deep if you are filled to the brim? So he decided to free himself from all that he was filled with in order to realize his idea. As he emptied himself of his possessions, he had moments of panic. What would happen if he became empty? How would he survive that? Would there even be a point to it all? And worst of all, what's deep down there? He didn't know and kept digging. There was nowhere to retreat, there was too much work he had done. He discarded items, and the other wells were scattering whatever he was free of. And naturally, digging deep, one day he stumbled upon water. The water quickly filled the well. The water was beautiful and clear. The well began to play with the water and got so carried away that he didn't notice it overflowing over the edge. The cracked earth became saturated with water and the grass around the well turned green, flowers bloomed and trees grew. Everything around it turned green, revived and became very beautiful. A small oasis was formed on the outskirts of the desert city, and this well was called Paradise on Earth. Other wells had never seen clean water in their lives. Usually only rainwater fed them. They marveled at the blooming plants around the well, and many of the wells also wanted the same clean, beautiful water. But, when they learned that in order to do so they would have to throw away the things they had accumulated, the things they held dear, they gave up the idea. They could only grumble and envy, saying that he might run out of water and die of emptiness. On the other side of the city, far away from the little well lived another well, which also decided to grow deep. And of course, the well also eventually found water. Thus, the town had already formed two oases, two beautiful wells, around which life buzzed. At one point, the two wells realized that the water they had discovered was available to everyone. But to get the water, you had to work hard. There was a lot of water, it was an underground river. They realized that it would never run out. Over time, they learned to communicate, not as all wells do, but in the depths of this common underground river. The main purpose of a well is to store drinking water. If there is no drinking water in the well is of no use to the surrounding area. Over time, such a well will deteriorate. So it is with humans, we are afraid to change our lives, and we live in a programmed system where one's desires take a back seat. We refuse to give up our dreams, refuse to learn to play a musical instrument, become an athlete or travel the world. When we decide to dig our own well, we discover our talents to become a musician, an athlete, a poet, a chef, a journalist, or an astronaut. Each person has his own well, and the depth of the well is different for everyone. But everyone has the same opportunities. Everything depends on your desire and diligence.